Before we walk into the future, can you please tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you grow up?
Dr. Nick, I was born and bred in the kingdom of Eswatini.
Right.
I'm the last of 8 children. I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters, and three brothers and 4 sisters, sorry. My parents are all Swazi. We all grew up in Swaziland. I studied primary, high school, and university in Swaziland. I did a degree in BCom accounting. And subsequent to that, I joined the graduate program with Unilever. So I moved from Swaziland, small Swaziland, to Durban. First time away from home, not sure what to expect, quite eager to get out. But also quite nerve-wracking because Swaziland is quite a contained environment, you know, most people. And I was going into the big wide world, all on my own, no parents, no family, which was quite daunting, to say the least, but it was something I was looking forward to. And I was very privileged to join the graduate program at Unilever. I think it's probably the highlight of my career. The longest job that I held was at Unilever. So there I was, off in Durban on my own, in my little car, and I lived with family friends for a while. So I used to drive from Umlazi to town where our offices were. I worked in the financial accounts department when I started at Unilever because that's what I had studied. Which was really a great place. I had a sponsor, Mr. Willie Scherzer. He really did take care of me, wanted to know what I wanted to do, was a very, like a father figure, to say, you know, a bit. I had a great boss at that time, Despina, and, you know, I did what all graduates do. You learn the ropes by doing all the dirty work, but you learn good things, doing budgets, doing month-end reports, and all that sort of jazz. Right. And then in about 6 months into that role, I realized, actually, I'm not enjoying this. I'd like to do something else. And I had already expressed in the interview that I'd like to go into marketing. Yeah. So I spoke to Willie, and I guess he spoke to other powers that be. And Unilever being the place that it is, I got a position at Lever Brothers. After 18 months, I moved into marketing at Lever Brothers. And I was in that role for quite a while. And, you know, starting in marketing again at the bottom as an assistant brand manager, I was working on a fabrics, washing powder, working for Ann Anderson at the time. And, you know, learning the ropes, doing brand audits, doing brand budgets, looking at strategies for the laundry market. And yeah, I sort of moved from that to a brand manager in personal wash. I did an innovation job within Unilever. I then also moved to Paris for 2 years, working in machine dishwasher. Was a really great experience. Taught me a lot of things, but most importantly, personal growth in Paris, because it was a cultural change, huge cultural shift from, you know, language to food to, you know, arts and everything else that you can think of. But I really enjoyed my time in Paris. I came back, and unfortunately my father passed away, so I actually didn't want to stay in Durban anymore. And I moved to Johannesburg with Beacon Sweets, which is now Tiger Brands, working for, I worked for Neil Brimacombe, and I worked on sweets, and I also worked on breakfast cereals. And then I moved from Tiger to National Brand, which is now, they've changed their name actually, it just slips my mind. And I worked on coffees there. So it's a very nice role that I worked on. I did instant coffees. And then I moved to Brand House, which was a joint venture with Diageo, Heineken, and Namibia Breweries. Again, Diageo very much like a Unilever. I had a wonderful time working on different portfolios as a portfolio manager for different for rums, gins, creams, and tequila. A really, really great experience. Working on brands that I normally wouldn't. The rum brand is a very different brand for me. One is young, the other was old. It's where I got my first stint on rugby with the guys that I worked with, because we did lots of stuff on rugby. I worked a lot with Kingsley Holgate. He was our brand ambassador. So it was a really different experience from a cultural perspective as well. And I then had the privilege to move to London to work on beers for Namibia breweries as part of the Diageo portfolio. After my stint in London, I came back, I joined Pick n Pay, a really, really great experience in retail, completely different to FMCG. I had a sponsor of note, Bronwyn, my boss there. And I really learned a lot from the retail side. It's a very interesting space to be in from a marketing point of view. And a lot happens because you're constantly doing volume driving stuff as well, and trying to add innovation to that and trying to bring new things into that space. After Pick n Pay, I kind of took a break, sort of thinking, what do I do now? And, I'd always wanted to work in the either telco or financial industry. But for some odd reason, I never got to do it. And, I started consulting, doing work with Barclays at the time. And I guess, move a couple of years later, I ended up at Absa. So I guess, what I wanted to do in the past have actually happened eventually. So now I'm in Absa, and it's also a very different environment from a marketing point of view. It's not like FMCG. I was privileged enough to work on the rebranding of CIB, which really was a great experience in 2018. We really relaunched the brand, and then we relaunched CIB as well. And it was such a lovely positioning piece of work that I worked on, really getting me into the brand itself. So it is really a privilege for me to be able to do that. I'm loving the work that I'm doing now in the region. I love working on the continent. It's really a vibrant place to be. So yeah, I'm in a good space, loving what I'm doing, and I'm looking forward to the future.
Right. And Zanele, going back to your early days, can you tell us what was your dream career in your early days?
I don't know if I had a dream career. My parents are teachers. Were both teachers, and I grew up in that environment. So a part of me, that's all I knew, I guess. So a part of me, I think, might have wanted to be a teacher, but it wasn't glam enough, in my view. It was a bit of it felt like quite a lot of, it wasn't glam for me as a child. So I thought, okay, you know what I'll do? I'll be a lawyer.
Right.
And none of that happened.
Yes. And tell us, in your early days, who inspired you to reach for the stars?
Dr. Nick, I was very lucky. My parents were go-getters, or are go-getters. They were go-getters, rather. And my parents always told me that anything was possible. They really pushed me hard. They pushed all of us hard, but they pushed me hard, and they wanted me to achieve the dream that I wanted to achieve. So my opportunity in Durban, for example, wasn't something they were happy to let me do because it was, going away from home. It was in the early 90s. But because this was part of my dream, they said, you know what, my child, go to where your heart takes you and do what you want to do. So my parents really inspired me to reach for the stars. They were really my anchor, my ambassadors, my everything. I could go to them for anything. Most of my advice came from them, and I'm fortunate enough to have older siblings. So I also had other people who were pushing me along my journey.
Right. And Zanele, looking back over your career, what would you say was a major turning point that got you to where you are today?
I'm not sure if it was a turning point, but I think, you know, my move to Paris, really, you know, it was the first time that obviously I'd left the country to go and work outside the country. And I guess what it did for me is it opened my eyes to the world beyond South Africa, you know, from Swaziland, as you know, it's small Swaziland, into South Africa, which feels like a huge pool. And then you go into this big world, which is, you know, you're now overseas, and I'm on my own in a place that I don't know. I have to learn different things. I'm speaking a different language. And you know, it just made me bold, made me want to reach for the stars. You know, learning French, I'd studied French at high school, but learning French and living in France and having to speak French every day was a challenge. But the fact that there was somebody, Tom Allchurch, who had faith in me, who was my sponsor, who made sure that I got that job that I wanted in Paris and not any other job. I'd interviewed for another job and he said, no, that's not the job for her. The job for her is here. I am forever grateful for that opportunity because it really propelled me. And I started to be even more confident about things I could do. You know, just being able to live in this place on my own, learn new things, you know, furnishing an apartment in France was no child's play. It was very difficult, you know. So it's just little things that you take for granted when you have to then do them in 8 different languages. You don't really know things. It's quite hard. But once I'd gotten over all of that, I really started to be more confident in the things that I could do. And I think it just set me up for the challenges that I faced throughout my career. I had I had a solid base from which to springboard. So I really think that experience for me is where the turning point happened.
Right. And Zanele, tell us, what is driving you today?
What's driving me today? You know, Dr. Nick, I'm not a, what's the right word? I love what I do. I love marketing. It's really, it really is a passion of mine. And I think today, what's really turned my life around is the job that I'm doing now, working on the continent. And I started this job only last year in February, but I feel that on the continent, you can make a huge impact. I feel that the people I'm working with value what I bring to the party. I'm also learning from other people. I'm learning from other cultures. Africa is not like South Africa. South Africa is a very different place. Africa is rich. I'm learning so many things from my colleague on the continent that I think actually I can bring back to South Africa, because I think we kind of lose touch as South Africans in terms of the rest of the continent. You know, we always talk about South Africa and the rest of Africa. What is that? There is no rest of Africa. We are all Africa. So I really am learning so much from these people, from different cultures, the East, the West, you know, the South. It's just different. And I feel like I'm in a rich place at the moment. I feel like I'm growing a lot more at the moment from the people that I work with. So it's not just what I can give, but it's what I'm also getting from other people to enhance what I'm trying to do for them in this role.
Right. Now, Zanele, looking into the future, and I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
You know, as leaders, I think we have many challenges, not just because business is difficult, but there are many challenges around various things. And I think, you know, COVID has been an eye-opener for all of us. COVID brought about a lot of, I guess we all had to look at ourselves and say, what exactly is happening in the world? The world is changing. drastically, not just because of technology, which is a big thing for us. It's changed. The things that are happening around us are really changing the way that we do business. And I think as leaders of the future, we need to really, people make up businesses, people make up organizations. The one thing that COVID taught me is that you need to focus on doing good for your people. During COVID, we were all really strung up, hung up, and we needed people, organizations that survived COVID. It's because leadership stood up and said, we have people, we need to take care of them. Because in order for this organization to strive, to continue to strive, we need these people to be working in this environment that is now very different. We're working at home, for example.
Right.
I don't have an office, for example. How do I help my employee who doesn't have an office? There's load shedding. There are power issues, but you expect them to work. And organizations that succeeded were those that started to look after their people, their well-being. A lot of us suffered mental health issues during COVID. And I think organizations that were open to helping their employees are today reaping the benefits of that, because as we go back to the office now, those organizations and those people are people who can take care of themselves. I think the leadership of the future needs to be a lot more open. We need to be trustworthy. We need to be, when you have people in your organization, you need to lead, be a visionary person, give people hope. Show people that they can do stuff, let people strive in your organization. We need to, understand that everybody wants to succeed. Nobody wants to fail in life. So give people the opportunities that will help them to grow. We need to be giving, female leaders, male leaders, Black female leaders. What are we doing to younger Black graduates and the like? What are we doing to help them to get into this world that is a rough world? Corporate is a rough world. And I don't know if we're doing enough to bring people on board. I don't know if we're doing enough to mentor people, to mentor people into the space that is a difficult space for most of us, right? And I think, in this country, there's a long way to go, but there are some people who are showing that they're bringing in not just, it's not just about making money for an organization. It's about the culture in your organization. What is the culture of your organization? How are you treating your people? Are you really taking care of them? Do you understand, where they come from? We all come from different backgrounds, but when we come to the corporate environment, we are in one space, but we're bringing in different values. We're bringing in different traits. We're bringing in different strengths, and we need to identify these strengths. And then we need to mold and grow them so that people can strive and be the best person that you can be in your job, and do other things and open up opportunities for people in the business world. So I really think that we've got a long way to go, and it's not an easy job, Dr. Nick. It's not easy by any means, but it has to be done, and we have to start somewhere. Influence the space that you can influence. Don't try and influence the world, because it's not possible for Zanele to do that. But I am in a space that I can influence certain things, that I can do certain things that will make a difference for even one individual, two individuals. That's okay. If everybody did that, most of us would be better people.
Now, Zanele, as you said, these are challenging times. What is your advice for future leaders in terms of challenges? What are some of the biggest challenges they should expect to encounter in their career?
I think we've got a huge challenge. I guess one of the biggest challenges for me is, how do we grow into this digital world that we are in? The world has become, it's so digitized. It's unbelievable, and unbelievable the things that you can do. Traditional media is great because it does a different job for you. But I think because of the way the behaviors of consumers and customers, we need to really get on top of this digital awareness, and what do we do in this digital environment across the board. Doesn't matter what business you're in, it's impacting all of us. People want everything quickly now. People want everything to be seamless, but there's also in this digital world the threat of hacking.
Yeah.
And I think that for me is something that people shy away from it, because you're not sure when you buy something online whether someone's got the details. So it's a bit daunting. In our environment, for example, how we must make sure that our customers, we are completely, we're proof that there's nothing that can get into our customers' details. Everything is safe proof. And I just think it's a daunting thing, but unfortunately, if we want to be at the leading edge of business, we need to absolutely live, breathe, eat, and sleep digital. It's the only way to go. We have to understand it. We have to apply it in everything that we do. And we have to understand the changing behaviors that are happening, the trends around us that are happening, so that we can be ahead of that and live up to what expectations are out there.
And Zanele, if you were to design a curriculum for future leaders, what are some of the new skills you would want to factor in?
Skills for future leaders. I think, again, Dr. Nick, one of the things that future leaders need to understand is from a, and I keep talking about people because I'm quite passionate about that area. I think it's about, are we truly driving, people growth as leaders? Are we really doing, do we put results above people? One of the things that I think I think we need to do more of is really in practice. Coaching is becoming more and more important for me, and I think it's good to have a coach. I've had coaches in my life in previous roles as well. I think it's really good to have a coach. I think it's really good to have a mentor. People should have good, mentorship. Mentorship is a really great thing, and I don't think it's necessarily an assigned mentor. I think sometimes the mentors that work for me are people that I reached out to, and to this day I still reach out to them. You get that close to that person, and for anything in life, whether it's personal or business-wise, you can go and talk to that person. I think it doesn't have to be an assigned person, but I think I'm not sure that we're putting our hands up to say, I'd like to mentor somebody if somebody needs mentoring. It's a lot of work, but I think you'd be a better leader. There are lots of people doing the work, below you as well. But there are so many good people out there, good leaders out there who could be helping some of us, to become better leaders. So mentoring, coaching, and just as leaders, I'm a big fan of LinkedIn, as you would know. I think, it's crucial now that we use LinkedIn as a branding tool for the self and for organizations. How are we as leaders using LinkedIn to be brand ambassadors of our own brands, and not just talking to other people's brands, our own brands? How are we doing that? How are we making sure that internally in your organization, people are, people live, breathe, sleep, eat the brand that they work for. I know this, Dr. because when I worked for Unilever, and I always say I must have been brainwashed, but I don't think so. I still, to this day, you will never take that away from me. I only use Lever products. I don't use anything else. I drink Diageo drinks. That is just who I am. I really bought into the brand. So, Absa for me is the bank to bank with. Don't go and bank somewhere else. You've got to bank at Absa. If I can't live and breathe Absa, the brand that I wake up every morning to, then I shouldn't be here, right? I think it's important to be, you know, an ambassador for the brand that you work for. It must be in your DNA. You must just feel it, you know. So it's really, for me, they're just, it's more interpersonal skills as opposed to technical skills that I think the future leader needs to have.
Right. And Zanele, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
I'm not sure if it's directly linked to mentoring that I shaped somebody's life, but a lady I worked with when I was still at Levers, she came in from Europe to work with us at Lever. And she spoke French fluently, English fluently, but you know, when you speak French, the way you write is quite different to English. And
Right.
I just liked her when she came to work for me, and I would, you know, I would coach her, I would work with her, and I would really drive her. Probably, well, she says now probably quite hard, but I thought I was doing a good job. And you know, I've seen her thrive in her career over the years, and you know, I know that her foundational years, I had something to do with it. So I feel like it's, you know, it's something that I pride myself in. You know, I've had another lady I worked with at Pick and Pay. She also came in to work with me, and I saw her grow in Pick and Pay. You know, after I'd left Pick and Pay, she moved into the clothing business, and you know, just watching people around, people that had worked for me, thriving. Even now, I see them and where they are today. I feel like I have made an impact, and I probably haven't recognized it at the time. But when you see people that you know, you were in their most formative years, you were part of that journey. It really gives me great pleasure to see them thriving and becoming big leaders where they are. Some of them are international, in the international space, some of them are in South Africa, and it just makes me feel really great that I had a small impact in their lives at the time, but look where they are today.
And Zanele, looking back over your leadership career, can you maybe share, are there any role models of leadership that you encountered and that you would like to recommend future leaders should follow?
I'm not sure I understand the question, Dr. Nick.
In terms of role models of leadership, are there any role models of leadership that come to mind that you would recommend future leaders should learn from?
You know, from the leaders that I've had, you know, one person who comes to mind constantly is a guy called Tom Oldchurch. Yeah. He's the guy who springboarded me into going to Paris, and he was a sponsor for me. He'd left the country when I actually went to Paris, but he knew what was happening. He was following my journey to make sure that I got what he felt I needed, which was a compliment to an innovation team on the continent, somewhere in the world. So for me, what made Tom a different leader is that he took a leap of faith in me. I'd just done an innovation job for a year, and then I got this job in Paris. Yeah. But it was a leap of faith. He followed me even when he was no longer in South Africa to make sure that I was getting what I had asked for. And for me, I was eternally grateful for that, because you know, that's when I learned that when you have a sponsor, lots of things happen. They can open doors for you. If I didn't have Tom, I don't know if I'd be where I am today, for example. I think he did open doors for me. And you know, it's other leaders that I've had. Neil Brimacombe was another leader that I had, and he worked me very hard. He was tough on me, but I realized that because of that, I became the person that I am. And a lot of the bosses that I've had, or the leaders that I've had, not bosses, I just like calling them bosses, but the leaders that I've had who've worked me really hard. And you know, when when you work for somebody and you don't want to disappoint them because of the kind of person they are. That's the kind of leader that I want to be, and I want to work for. I want to be that kind of person, because when you feel like that, Dr. Nick, the sky's the limit. I'll do anything. You know, I don't work myself to the ground, but I'll work myself to the ground at certain times, because I know I need to do something. So I want to be that kind of leader, the person who people don't want to disappoint. And I also want to be that kind of person, not to disappoint my leader, because I think, you know, if I do good, my leader does good. Together we do good. So that's the kind of, you know, leadership that I treasure, and it's something that I'd like to become myself.
Thank you. And Zanele, where can our listeners follow you, and how should they connect? Yeah,
I'm on LinkedIn, of course, and on Twitter, Somtwana20.
Yeah.
At Somtwana20. Yeah.
And last but not least, Zanele, what is your word of advice for learners who are now looking to leave school to enter the world of work? What success factor, one or two success factors, should they keep in mind for building a career?
I think the first thing is, whatever you decide to do, you must do something you love. I've worked for over 30 years now, and if I didn't love what I'm doing, it would be a problem. Don't do something just because it's either the easiest thing to do or the next best thing. Do something that you love, because you'll be doing this for the rest of your life. And you've got to have that passion. Love it, love it, love it. So that's the first thing. The second thing I think is, identify somebody who can journey with you. You know, some people are lucky to have family members who can journey with them. Identify someone who can journey with you, that you can bounce things off, and that can help you to, as you work through this career path that you want to take, you can bounce things off somebody to say, you know, this is what I want to do, and they might help you understand how you can do it. Sometimes we don't know what the next step is. You know, every job I've been in has led me to the next thing. So just find somebody that you can bounce things off, that you can walk this journey with, because it's always quite nice to have a voice of reason, somebody who can just be honest about whatever it is that you're telling them, so that you can get that sounding board. I think it's a very good thing to have a sounding board.
Well, Zanele, thank you so much for sharing your leadership journey and your insights and wisdom into the future of leadership, and reminding us that we all need a coach, and we really should be doing what we love. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nick. Thank you very much.